What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Corey Austin Theorem, where I talk about Kratom use, mostly 7-hydroxy, how each of those substances may affect you, how they may affect you if you are looking to come off of them. I am not a Kratom and or 7-hydroxy hater. Well, I kind of am a 7-hydroxy hater. I'm not gonna lie. And I think it's because I had such a horrific experience with the 7-hydroxy and trying to get off of it that, I think it's pretty safe to say I'm a hater of 7-OH. But I'm not so much of Kratom itself. I think Kratom itself, if used responsibly, and I would like to put a little caveat there that I think a lot of people cannot and are not using it responsibly. I have to say that. And again, doesn't go for everyone. That doesn't mean that there aren't some people out there who are using it for the right reasons, whether it be for pain, to help a little bit with anxiety, that sort of thing. And while a lot of people may not, listen, it's like I've said a million times on this channel. Everything is really subjective because we're all different, right? And someone who really has had a lot of trouble controlling their use with something like Kratom would immediately say, oh, no, that's not a good plan. Taking Kratom for anxiety, shit, it caused me more anxiety. Yeah, but you were taking 50 grams a day of it. And then you try to stop, or you try to cut down significantly, yeah, you're absolutely going to have some rebound anxiety. But I would be remiss, and we would all be idiotic if we didn't recognize, and I didn't say that, there's some people out there that use it way more modestly and moderately than what I did or what a lot of you guys did. So I try to be careful not to land too heavily on one side of the fence here. I do try to play kind of both sides of the fence, and it's not so I can keep everybody happy. It's just that's the way I feel. Some people are different, and my wife likes the effects of Kratom. During the time that I was having my struggles with Kratom, my wife would also use some Kratom, but my wife is just a person that never used it abundantly like I did. She always used it way more moderately. It was never like multiple times per day, like you're dosing on it every few hours, and she just never really did that. So for her subjective experience with Kratom was quite different than my subjective experience. And while I might stand on this side because I had a horrific experience and say, oh, well, taking it for pain is not a good idea because, it's going to end up causing you more pain in the end when you try to come off of it. Well, that may be true for you, but what may be true for you may not be true for the next person because they may have a different way of using. They may have a different habit in the way that they use Kratom, right? It may not be as much of a habit as it is for you. So I think we all have to be careful. It's just like being a Christian and saying that Christianity and Jesus Christ is the only way to connect with God, the only way to heaven. It's just like that sort of thing. You have to be careful. You have to be careful because not everyone feels that way, right? And not everyone has the same sort of, up and down, very touchy relationship with something like Kratom or even 7-hydroxy for that matter, like you do. So it's really hard to come on here and point fingers at everyone else and say, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. Well, why, Corey? Well, I don't know, because I had to. What? No. I mean, that's idiotic. That's narrow-minded. That's naive to think that way, because not everyone is like me. right? So I try to be careful about that on here. What I wanted to talk a little bit about today is something I've discussed on the channel several times, but I wanted to discuss it again, and that is how regular use of especially 7-hydroxy, Kratom 2, more so 7-hydroxy, is going to affect your libido, aka your sex drive. Hopefully those aren't buzzwords for YouTube, and I'll get, you know, there have been times where as far as the monetization on my channels, I've looked and I posted some video and YouTube said that, you know, there's some guideline that it, you know, went against. And I'm sorry, someone almost cut in front of me there. Scared the shit out of me for a second. There have been times where my channel or a video has gotten demonetized, and I, for the life of me, could not figure out why. And I'm thinking about everything that I said in the video, like what could have possibly gotten the video demonetized, right? And I do think that some of that is buzzwords that they don't like you to say, and then when you say them, you get some sort of demonetization notice, and you don't earn as much on that particular video. Anyway, rambling a little bit here. Yeah, I tend to do that, just FYI. So bear with me. A lot of times the good shit comes towards the end. But yeah, 7-hydroxy severely affects your sex drive. And what do I mean by that? Well, I've heard this not only is true for men, but I have had women on the channel as well who have said, you know, it's the same way for women. And what I mean by that is your drive to have sex, how often you will become horny. You know, you're sitting there, or whether you got a spouse or your girlfriend, or you don't, or maybe you don't have either and you just watch porn or whatever, and you masturbate, whatever it is, you're sitting there and you have that conscious thought of, dang, I'm kind of horny right now. I'd like to get off right now. I'd like to climax right now. I'd like to, whatever, you know, whatever the wording is that you use. Look, there's nothing to be ashamed of. We're all sexual beings. It is what it is, right? So, that moment that you think that or feel that will come way less often when you are heavily, especially heavily, on something like 7-hydroxy or even Kratom. Now, let me be clear before people jump in the comments, oh, I've been taking Kratom for so-and-so and so-and-so, and it's never bothered my sex drive. Well, more than likely, you're not taking ungodly amounts of it every day, right? Because there are varying degrees to everything in life. Same goes for Kratom. Same goes for 7-hydroxy. If you're only taking Kratom just a little bit here and there, a couple of grams here, a couple of grams there, maybe once a day, a couple of times a day, or even better, you're going 2-3 days, and you're one of those people, you can literally kind of be a social Kratom user, right? Again, I think that those of us who have trouble moderating it way outnumber the people who have trouble or do not have trouble controlling it. But those people are out there. And again, I know that because I'm married to one, right? And if you're just an occasional user, likely you're probably not going to have any trouble with your sex drive. You'll have that feeling just like you always do. Well, I'm horny, I would like to have sex. Or I'm horny, I would like to masturbate. Whatever your thing is, right? And so there's that aspect of it, and that covers the libido part, or your sex drive, your want. This has to do with your mental, right? This is not your physical. I'll get to that. But your mental, meaning I recognize that I am horny right now, or I recognize that I want to have a sexual encounter right now, or I want to climax right now. Whatever it is, that triggers that in you will be very, very much deadened and numbed down. And I remember when I was using heavily, the sexual encounters that I would have were way more just feeling human. Like, holy shit, I hadn't had sex in almost a month. You know, I don't even feel like a human anymore. I don't even feel like I'm married anymore. You know, sex is such an integral part of who we are as humans, right? I know it's kind of weird to talk about. It's kind of taboo, but man, it's 2025. Fuck it, we can talk about this stuff, man. It's true. We're sexual beings. There's nothing wrong with it. Everybody, you know, I'm not going to say everyone, but, you know, 99.9% of people on this planet experience this sex drive and need for sex on a regular basis, right? Throughout their life, from puberty on, most of us, right? And I just remember doing it, not because I was horny, not because that thought popped in my head, oh, I would like to have sex right now. No. It was because I felt bad, or I felt some sort of way about the fact that I was never making love to my wife. Like, dude, I'm not even human. Sex used to be a huge part of my life, you know, and now here I am, like, I can take it or leave it. I don't really care. And it'd be one thing if you were avoiding intimacy with your partner, which people do this, avoiding intimacy with your partner and then going in the bathroom and rubbing one out when you actually have someone that you can have sex with. As sad as that sounds, people do it. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you don't have the desire to have sex. You don't even have the desire to masturbate. You just don't care because it so severely numbs down that aspect of your brain which controls your body, right? So that's the mental aspect of how, you know, your sexuality is affected by especially heavy kratom use. Now, the physical aspect of it is a very real thing too, including difficulty maintaining an erection, including really severe difficulty climaxing, ejaculating, however you want to look at it. Both of those things are very common for people who are using larger amounts of kratom, and especially 7-hydroxy. 7-hydroxy, if you're using even, I think, a medium amount of it every day, it is going to severely affect your sex drive. You're not going to want to do it. And if you do want to do it, or if you decide to do it for some reason, you're likely going to have some trouble with the works. Maintaining an erection. You know, it's one of those things where a lot of people will say, oh, having trouble ejaculating? Oh, hell yeah. I mean, that sounds like every man's dream. You know, you can go all night, don't have to worry about ejaculating, surely don't have to worry about premature ejaculation. You just, you know, I'm like a porn star now, you know what I'm saying? But the problem with that is that gets old really quickly, because the reason we have sex in the first place is because the shit feels good. It's not just to go through the motions of it. We go through the motions to get to the climax, to get to the part where you get that full body rush of like, oh, okay, let me not let me not give a demo on what it sounds like to have an orgasm, but you all get it, right? We're all adults. So it's not all it's cracked up to be, right? You would think, oh, that's great, you know, I can go all night, not have no, that kills it. That kills it. The reason you have sex in the first place is for those good feelings, physically, and in a lot of cases, if you really care about the person, the emotional feelings that you get that are connected with sex as well, right? But if you're taking small amounts of either one, if you're one of those rare people that is able to control it, or able to kind of moderate your use, you're probably good. And you probably won't have too much negative impact on your sex life, your libido, things like that. But I know it was a huge problem for me. And I'm very fortunate that, with my wife, and it doesn't take much, she's, I'm just going to say it, she's multi-orgasmic. Doesn't take a whole lot for her. She walks away or wobbles away happy every time, you know what I mean? But it was me that I was struggling. And there were multiple times during a sexual interaction that I literally couldn't orgasm. I just couldn't. Like, no matter how hard I tried, how long I tried, it just wasn't going to happen. And certainly after a period of time, having trouble maintaining an erection and stuff was something that was common as well. And I will say, I'm in my upper 40s, so I understand that my sex drive is not what it was when I was a 21-year-old kid or a 25-year-old man. I understand that. But I can tell you, when I'm not on those things, not on Kratom, not on 7-hydroxy, there's no problem. No problems whatsoever with functionality or anything else, right? Major problems arise when I start getting on especially high amounts of Kratom or 7-hydroxy. And the 7-hydroxy was the worst. The absolute worst. I just can't explain it. It was the absolute worst. It literally was as though someone took lidocaine. You know that lidocaine stuff that they put in your mouth when they're getting ready to give you a shot, to kind of help numb it down a little bit. You know how afterwards in the mouth, a lot of your mouth will be numb after having dental work done. You're waiting for the numbing to wear off. So it's like, it's there, and you can kind of feel it by just your sensibilities. You're recognizing that it's there. There's a tongue there. There's teeth. There's gums. You have the palate of your mouth and the roof. You have all those things, but you just can't feel them. It's just like, I know they're there, but I can't feel them. That's what it's like when you're on high amounts of 7-hydroxy and then you try to have sex. It's that simple. It feels like somebody took a bunch of lidocaine and just started at your waist and just went all over your body, everywhere, including your private area, your genitals, all that. That's what it feels like. And I remember that being a very frustrating aspect of taking something like that regularly. Very frustrating. And I know a lot of you guys have experienced it as well, but I just want to kind of put that out there, because a lot of times we get kind of selective thinking when it comes to something that we take, and if we like taking it and we want to keep taking it, we like to somehow twist it and turn it. And listen, I'm no different. We like to twist it and turn it in a way that makes us feel better about our decision to keep taking it, right? So when you start talking about the negative consequences, like a completely absent sex drive, and listen, sex is a beautiful thing. Making love to your partner, your spouse, is a beautiful thing, right? And a lot of us get to a point where we would just completely forego that. We don't care about sex anymore. That's when you know that where you're at with Kratom or 7-hydroxy is not a good place anymore. That's when you know that. When you start realizing that I hadn't had sex in a month. And I really don't care. I haven't wanted to have sex in a month. Knowing that if you were not on that substance, you would have definitely wanted to, or had the desire to, or would have had sex multiple times throughout that month, possibly multiple times in a week, right? And now all of a sudden, you're okay with just never having sex. Something's weird about that. But, you know, I like to talk. Listen, I don't judge people. I don't weigh too heavily on either side of the fence. I think if you're able to control something like Kratom and use it somewhat responsibly, and it's not affecting you in these ways that are causing you to literally almost live subhuman-like, then I'm okay with it. You can use it. It's fine. You know, I mean, you can use it even if you're using an obscene amount. I'm not your father or mother, but I give advice on here as it relates to Kratom and 7-hydroxy, and I just got to say outright, that is a huge issue with the Kratom and with the 7-hydroxy. And if you look at your own sex life and you realize that your new normal is literally having sex maybe once a month or once every couple of months because you just don't feel like it, you just don't have any sexual desire anymore, then you might be at a point where you need to look at your Kratom use, or you need to look at your use of 7-hydroxy, because if your new norm is that, I want you to try to think back, if you can, to the time where you were not taking that and you did enjoy sex, and you enjoyed it often, and you wanted it often, you desired it often, right? And you know, it's just something that you have to take the good with the bad on issues like Kratom use. You know, we can't all sit here and just point out all the positive things and then downplay the negative aspects of heavy Kratom use. You can't do that. You can do it, but you're only lying to yourself, and you're only perpetuating that lie and giving yourself an excuse to just continue taking it. It's all you're doing, right? And you know, they say you can lie to yourself, but you can't lie to yourself. You see what I'm saying? Because, yeah, you can lie to yourself and give yourself an excuse to keep taking it, but you can also put yourself in a worse situation by doing that, and in the back of your mind, in places that you wouldn't talk about in front of other people, you kind of know that you're just bullshitting yourself, right? So that's one of the negative aspects of Kratom and 7-hydroxy. It always was for me, and I know a lot of other people that have been on the channel have said the same thing. Again, I've had women say it affects them the same way. You know, it's just something to think about, something to consider. If you're just starting to use Kratom, just be aware that if you get to a point where you're using a lot of it, it could potentially become a problem for you in the sexual needs department, right? So I think that's enough rambling about that, but appreciate you guys listening. Hey, please do subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this sort of just real content by just some guy who has experience with it, and someone who's, you know, tries their best to be objective on here and not subjective. I try not to shove my own ideas down people's throats, because I'm very open-minded about how all of this works together and how we're all so much different. So that could be the teaching background. You know, my 4-year degree is in education, and I was always really big on individualization. You know, we're all different. You can't teach all kids the same. You can't teach Joe Blow the way you do little Sally over here, because little Sally may be way more advanced in certain areas than little Joe Blow, right? It's the same thing when it comes to something like Kratom use. We're just not all the same. So you can't take this cookie cutter ideology and place it on every person who's using Kratom, because for some people it's a way bigger problem than it is for others. Just is. And that's why I'm always so open-minded in regards to it, right? But if you don't ever want to have sex anymore and you're only having sex once a month, could be the Kratom if you're a user. Could be the 7-hydroxy if you're a user. All right, I love you guys very much. Hope you have a wonderful day. I will see you on the next one. Thanks so much for watching.